data behind everything here for sure. And there's a bar raiser who's involved in every interview. And that bar raiser is to make sure that every new person that comes into the organization, is at least as qualified as 50, is more qualified than 50% of the people who are currently in that position.
Wow.
So it's all about getting better with every hire.
If you
I think it helps just to understand kind of what the motivations and sources of pain might be, just because I've integrated probably with all the different systems that they're working with. So it gives me that perspective of, yeah, there's a reason why what you're going through is hard. There are challenges and they are real. So let's talk through those. Let's prioritize, what hurts the most and see what we can do to alleviate it. Yeah,
so
I think the challenge that we encounter as associations day after day after day is how siloed our organizations are. And as a result, how siloed our data and our systems are. So as a result, it's virtually impossible to have that enterprise thinking, that enterprise-wide perspective, because everything is just sitting in these little pockets everywhere. Okay, how do we get this holistic view across our organization? How can we bring all the data together so that we have a true and exhaustive profile about our member? They expect us to know them inside and out, but we know bits and pieces of them that's sitting in the learning management system and in the website and in the CRM and in the certification system. And that makes it a challenge to really engage members. It makes it a challenge to see what makes them tick and to anticipate what their behaviors are going to be. Start measuring your impact more effectively and reporting that back out as part of the membership retention or fundraising kinds of angles within the organization. And then start to use that to predict what the future holds. If we can start modeling, which of our members are most likely to churn so that we can be proactive in reaching out to them, or what will the impact of this pricing change truly have on our membership, and moving beyond well, we think that this is going to happen to this is what the data shows us will happen. Well, certainly the topic of the month, year, is certainly about AI and machine learning. Working with a lot of associations right now on how do we repurpose the content that we already have around, certification, for example, and create interactive kinds of quizzes for our members so they can assess knowledge gaps, and let's help them fill those knowledge gaps in real time with products and services that drive revenue. It might be language translation. It might be accessibility and making your content more accessible, from text to voice, from image to voice, from image to text, but making our content and our resources more accessible across.
So if an association says, yeah, our tech stack's great, we're good, we don't have a relationship with AWS and I don't have any budget for it, like, where do they start?
I think that's really around fueling innovation. So some of my favorite conversations to have with nonprofit customers is, what are those big audacious goals that you have? And putting aside technology, putting aside the tech stack, where is it that you want to be as an organization? Where do you have the opportunity to make impact? Where can you truly make a difference? We can take, the benefit of Amazon's experimental culture and our ability to work backwards from what is the customer's real problem to identify new and innovative solutions for our nonprofit customers. That gives them a unique space. Understanding the motivational factors that get people in the doors to those large events. And as a new person coming into a conference, it can be really, really intimidating and overwhelming. So I would love for someone to be able to give me a personalized agenda. Say, this is how we think that you'll get the most value out of this conference participation. And here are the things that you should check out. Here are the other people that are going to be there that you know. Here are some places that you might want to explore to learn something new. Here are some places that you can contribute your subject matter expertise so that it becomes a no-brainer whether or not they're coming back to that conference. I can learn so much just from hearing people's stories of success. And one of the things that I love about the association world is how willing we are to talk about failure, because I think we can learn so much from each other's failures. I think that we are still scared of change. And, the thing that we all set as our New Year's resolutions year after year is that I'm going to take more chances, right? I'm going to leap more aggressively towards things. And it can be challenging to break outside those boxes. And that's one of those themes that I continue to hear over and over again is how do we get to be okay with change? I think Gen AI just brought that up to the surface for a lot of organizations and forced the conversation of well, we've always written content this way, but now we've got a way to write content this way. Is
Right.
it scary? And fear is the biggest inhibitor of innovation in so many ways. Talk a lot at Amazon about one-way doors and two-way doors. And when you're facing any decision, you have to decide, am I walking through a one-way door? Does that mean that I really can't just turn around and walk right back out if I don't like what I see? Versus walking through a two-way door, which most doors are. I can go through, I can see what's on the other side. If it doesn't look the way I expected it to, I can turn around and walk back. At Amazon, we talk about you can walk through that two-way door with only 70% of the information. Because if you are constantly trying to look at every single scenario and gather every piece of information, you'll be paralyzed.
Yeah.
And I think that culture expectation needs to come from the top of the organization.
Yeah.
Are people going to get punished or celebrated for their experiments, regardless if they pass or fail? We hear here every day that if you knew how it was going to turn out, it's not an experiment. I think it's also about giving people time and space to think differently. If I can only innovate in my organization on my own time, how often am I going to do that? So in my job role, 10% of my job is reserved for thinking differently and innovating and doing something different. And that comes from my management team that says, no, this is important, that we are going to give you the time to do that.
So important to involve communications experts, especially when you're trying to get people to move the ball.
And to that point too, when you have the people in the corners and you get them to say that, ooh, that's interesting moment, then you have this opportunity to cultivate the champion that's going to help you advance it to the next stage. Because it's the people who are curious, the people who are interested, the people who see the opportunity to make their job easier by embracing some new technology or some different process. Those are the people that are going to be your partners in getting stuff done. And stop.
Diversifying revenue.
So many of the conversations that I'm having, and one of the ways that I find is easiest to unstick technology projects, and technology projects are often viewed as capital investments and overhead. But so often those technology projects are really those that support new streams of revenue. Things like getting more people to attend a event with very personalized calls to action, or creating those personalized itineraries for folks to get them engaged and doing more at conferences, the quiz bot kinds of tools that are going to help us generate a new revenue stream from a latent asset, content that's already sitting there being used in one way, but we're going to put a new lens on it so that we're going to generate revenue another way. And doing things like looking at our price modeling and say, does our price modeling make sense? Are we scared to increase our prices? Are we going to charge the same for virtual and in person? There are so many different ways that we can crack the revenue puzzle. And she said that her CFO would come to every meeting and says, margin drives mission. So they're looking at not only the different programs and services that we're offering, but how profitable are they? Profit doesn't have to be a dirty word in an association space. They
have a couple people on staff that just know it in their brain. And so they're trying to figure out, how do we surface that information and share with our members in real time? So that is an AI project they're looking at, that you would pay a fee for. I need help with my export paperwork, so they can sell it, but it really benefits these small businesses who have
important distinction. Our members don't want information. They want answers.
Yes.
They want very specific answers to very specific questions when and how they want them.
Right.
And there's a huge amount of intellectual property in these standards and in these books. But is that going to help me in a lab at a specific moment in time when I just need an answer to a question of this? And so I think we're going to see much more of this self-service culture. But what that's going to do is free up the association staff, that they're not answering the little questions where they don't add value, and instead are enabled to invest more time in those one-to-one membership conversations where they add unique and human value.
Yeah.
I think it's an interesting question. We've talked about sacred cows for a long time in not only associations, but across the entire business sector. There are some programs that exist because there are a group of people who believe that they should. And then there are a group of programs that were very profitable for many years and are slowly dwindling down to zero. And then there are programs that distract from mission. And so where I think that the data comes in is it helps to pinpoint where there's a mismatch between our program and service and what our customer really needs. And stop.
Engagement and retention.
Really about making the decision to join or come back one that is so clear they don't even really need to think about it. And it's either going to be super, super clear because they have an emotional attachment, or it's going to be super, super clear because they see a financial return on investment. And I think organizations need to pick who they are. From an association standpoint, you need to decide, am I trying to retain people because they can't imagine life without me? Or am I trying to engage them because it's a business proposition? Because I think that the approach and how you need to do that is fundamentally different. We need to take a step back when we talk about membership retention and engagement and lay our membership value proposition against what are the key motivators to the people that we're trying to attract and retain. Because I think if we don't understand the decision motivators, we're just kind of marketing in the dark. My hope coming out of COVID is that we got better at being empathetic and putting ourselves in other people's shoes, understanding what was important to them and bringing that back into our daily lives. And I think some organizations came out of COVID with a really good understanding of how empathy mattered. And some are still trying to figure it out.
Given the culture of Amazon that you've just been talking about, does that get very frustrating? And if not, what is your answer for how you can better know your members in a nonprofit organization or a membership organization where you kind of got to get people away from what they've done for years and years and years?
Mm-hmm. I don't get frustrated because there are always good reasons for where an organization is at that point in time. And again, it's the empathy. It's okay, let's go into the conversation with no judgment whatsoever and just do a deep dive. Where are you? Where does it hurt? What keeps you up at night? What's super frustrating? What is that one board member who always calls to complaining about? And again, it comes down to, I need to truly understand everything that's going on in your organization to help map a path forward. Because I think that that's what's most exciting about where we are in the technology landscape is the true democratization of access. That it doesn't matter if you're the size of Amazon or you're the size of a 3-staff association, you have the positive entitlement to have access to the best that technology has to offer. And I think we're in a really exciting place to really put that into fruition.
I'm ready.